The cycle. The cycle of
Just right, how the people were, where they started. And somebody just tell me real quick in a few words. Tell me what was the cycle? Elaborate it in your own Tennessee words. Anybody?
They went into sin, and God gave them a chance to get them out of that sin.
Disobedience.
As soon as that judge was gone, they went back into sin again, and the same cycle started.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. All right. So I want to resurrect here. In case y'all haven't figured it out by now, I sort of like the Middle East and all that area, and I love maps and charts, and so I'm still digging this one right here that I introduced 2 weeks ago. The land of Canaan before the conquest. This sort of shows what that is, and we're going to go back and look at that a little bit today. So, are there any takeaways or follow-up from last week or the week before? Anything on anybody's heart? Say, Randy, I think you're cuckoo. Randy, you were right on. You made my heart sputter. Anything at all from last 2 weeks that we want to talk about? Because
I thought it was a good kind of discussion of the whole cycle and why they continually fell into idolatry and fell away.
Was a good discussion, wasn't it?
Nice.
We had good class talk last week, and also I sent you the video. I think I said back. For those of you who may not have been in the class earlier, I have a little video. I think it's called the Bible Project. It shows the book of Judges, and it's written in description. It's very cool. I'd like to share with you. Okay, well let me just lay it out there. Let me see if I can get some more discussion from you. Is there anything we've covered so far in 2 weeks that you think has application for your or my or our current day life? Anything so far that you say, ta-da, this is what I want. Any thoughts?
It's just women, as human, we just repeat the cycles.
All right, well in this case, we're going to start into chapter 3 right now. Raise your hand up if you're willing to read. Anybody want to read? Okay, you may remember from week 1 we talked about, or in that little video, Judges is sort of considered to have 3 breakdowns. There's sort of an introduction, epilogue, then there's a big thing, and then there's a prologue thing at the end or whatever. We'll wind down. So, who would read our verses, chapter 3, verses 1 through 4? Go for it.
Now these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them, that is, all in Israel who had not experienced all the wars in Canaan. It was only in order that the generations of the people of Israel might know war, to teach war to those who had not known it before. These are the nations, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. They were for the testing of Israel, to know whether Israel would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. How y'all feel about this vocabulary going so far? We've got more people to keep up with so far, don't we? Because we've had lands and places for 2 chapters. Now we got more. And how about these Sidonians? We don't hear much about them, do we? I think that's really from Star Trek. I'll just be honest with you. I think that's in Sector 4, maybe, or something like that. I don't remember the Sidonians really being a thing a lot. But, no, just kidding about them. Okay, Richard, how about if I just push my luck and get you for just 2 more verses?
Could we go back?
Sure, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
I guess I never noticed before that the Lord did this to teach warfare to this next generation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a strange statement.
It does sort of at first glance, it does sort of seem strange. I have my response, but I want somebody else to talk. Why in the world would the Lord be teaching warfare to this generation? Why would that be going on?
That's when all that, there's always wars and rumors of wars. Still in the wars about almost so many different countries.
Mhm.
That's all we do now is fight, killing, mutilating, destruction. From the end up in the time.
Okay, what else? What else does anybody think?
To obey the Lord's commands, which
Yes.
He commanded sometimes for them to wipe out uh, certain people in lands. But at the same time, it makes you wonder: do they need that training when they have the Lord and they've been overwhelmed in several instances in the Bible? He has provided when they thought they were
I think so.
outnumbered,
I think so. What else?
They didn't have any experience in battle, so they were going to have to fight.
Because we feel like that number, that came out of Egypt, I think it's quoted as like 900,000 men or something like that. And then you add the women and the children and blah, blah, blah. But it's over 2 million, we feel like, pretty easily left Egypt. And how many made it to here? 2. Joshua and Caleb. All the rest of them that didn't have faith and didn't do right are buried along the way. And so we have a whole new generation here on the verge of conquering Canaan that really have no experience in battle. And they not even need boot camp, right? Go for it.
I don't know who said it, maybe anonymous, but the only thing for evil to prevail is for good men to stand by and do nothing. So there is sometimes a need to take them on.
Yes.
If not, evil will triumph.
All right.
Would you, to bring this into present day, should we have a trained army? Is that, I mean, this is obviously, they're gonna have a trained army here.
It
Should we, some people are pacifists and don't believe that we should do that, should we?
boy, that just almost seems like I'm putting my spot out there, doesn't it? Who else wants to be a little Democratic or a little Republicanish and touch on that? I mean, I do. I think that's what our country was based on: tax evasion and military. That's the two. Tax evasion, right? We didn't want, right? But that's my thought.
I look at it sometimes as, of course, we need to be ready for war, defense, not actually being aggressive,
Correct.
but defense. And then sometimes I relate it to the war in my soul, or the war in our world today. The church needs to be on a defensive side or side and no war. Does that make sense?
It does, but for the benefit of others and some things that also you can't win playing defense, right?
You can't do a conquest on defense.
Yes,
That's what
yes.
they're going into a conquest.
Right. So
We're supposed to be more than conquerors,
yes.
so we have to be aggressors.
Well, defensive people are fighters.
Right.
They just, I was amazed in reading through the book how many people God allowed to be killed
Yes.
as a result of the sin that they committed. Hundreds of thousands.
Yes. I want to touch on that a little more, but I said that last week. I think it was hard to summarize this, and I want to move on just a little bit, and we'll kind of pan out on some other things. But I think it's hard to imagine you're taking a large group of people into this land that flows with milk and honey, and I'm going to try to help us understand a little bit the resistance a way of looking at the resistance. It's hard to know what they faced in resistance and in fear and in faith, because remember, they just came through the Joshua thing, and most of them grew up impressionable. Most of them grew up impressionable during the wilderness, right? Y'all, Treva's mother is 98 years old. My mother-in-law is 98. When she was 4 and a half, the stock market crashed and went into the Great Depression. My mother-in-law saves coffee filters, okay? I mean, she has a perception about how life is, turning off light, taking bulbs out of lights, different. She has a way for surviving, and And I don't get it. I want to be comfortable, and I mean, I don't think I'm flagrant or whatever, but she just has a different way of looking. And so I think it's hard for us, as you said last week, what were the Jews thinking? It's hard for us to know what those poor assembly of this citizenship was thinking after they had come through what they'd come through for all this. We keep hearing mom and dad grumbling. Mom and dad say we're going to a promised land, but they doubt it and whatnot. So that's as much venom as I want to spin into it. Just a few seconds. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, Randy, something I think I might add, maybe we didn't think about it in right a lot. It was, yeah, like Joshua, he was saying, right, he was saying, you don't leave anything alive, the men and the women and the children and the cattle, and this, this, wipe it clean, and you turn it right around today. Jesus said before you can enter into the kingdom, you got to be a one for your children.
Yeah.
You have the heart of a child.
I can't either, brother. Some of these we will understand better by and by. Some of these we'll just understand. Real quick. I got the cool stuff to show.
We're expecting the Messiah to take the kingdom back by force. But Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. It wasn't about markings and power. I don't think we should ever think that we're going to come in God's kingdom.
That's right.
His kingdom is
That is correct. Okay, that is correct, and that is something we carry in our mind, isn't it? We perceive that sometimes, that we are the light of the world as a country, as a secular government. We perceive that. Richard, did we get to read those last two verses?
So the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Hittites. Their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods.
Okay, so let's look at my favorite little chart again here. I've highlighted some of these things we just heard. And if you remember back a verse or two in the first, it talked about the 5 kings. Is that right? Does my arrow show on here? Just the 5 rulers of Philistia. There was Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Gezer. I mean, it's hard to imagine a little kingdom like that. Philistia, that little Gaza strip isn't very much, but we're talking about the Canaanites, and even up here, my favorite Sidonians that I was picking on a while ago, way up here in the north in Lebanon. And so see, this chapter today is kind of focusing down in here and touching over here and a little bit in the East Bank. You don't hear it called the East Bank very often, do you? So let's bring in last week's fun map, because I liked it. Last week's map, I've got these lined up together here. See the seas lining up, the Great Sea, this and the other. Last week we talked by judge and whatnot, and we talked about the tribe, what the tribes were doing last week. And today we're talking about the perpetrators, right, or the indigenous folks. So you're seeing how they kind of were blending and getting this whole scenery. That's hard to read when you're looking at it, what they're talking about. But that's what's happening is we're covering the whole chapter or the whole area from the beginning. Everybody got that? Okay. Has it?
I think when you contrast verse 4, that these pagans were there to test to see if the people would obey God, and the next verse they're married.
Absolutely.
Didn't do well on the test.
Correct. Okay, I want to regurgitate some more material that some of. Go ahead.
This is very interesting because if you ever do a thing where the Levites are given their territories throughout Israel, it kind of roughly corresponds to that. There's somebody hanging out in each of the 12 tribes, and then you got each of these judges. I mean, it's like God's overlaying here, but you got the Levites, which are red, which is the law, and then you got the judges who are forces, I don't know, military leaders, whatever. So I think that's just fascinating what God has distributed his people, his leaders throughout the world.
It's just a rough overlay, rough similarities that God has placed those rulers throughout the Israelites. If you were to overlay that with the tribe of Israel, you'll see that there's roughly one for every tribe. That would be the same with the Levites. It's just a minor thing. Sorry.
Well, no, that's cool. And there's something I brought out the first week. I just talked on briefly, touch and go, and then there are some folks that think the book of Judges is a collection. Generally speaking, we think Samuel wrote it, but it could be a collection of different people. This suggested, I put this up so I could go with this controversial. I tend to think it's a collection of people because in one chapter, we're talking by tribe conquest or tribes not doing it right. In the next chapter, we're talking about the indigenous people. As in, just from chapter 2 to 3, it's a whole different subject thing, right? That makes me tend to wonder, well, do you have two different authors here? Okay. You're the man. Thank you. Okay, let's go back. Now, I want to take y'all down the road and let's think about something. Let's just go down a fun little spot here. Anybody remember this chart from a previous time and place? Anybody not seen this chart before? Okay. This little time chart is lifespans of the Bible patriarchs. Here's Adam to Abraham. Here's their age inside. The stagger, blah, 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 blah. Some interesting overview I want to bring to you. From the Adam and creation to Abraham, from Genesis 1 to about Genesis 12, 2,000 years. Kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? 2,000 years. In fact, date of the flood, 1656. When you read and put the verses that said together, it's highly likely Methuselah drowned. Okay. Possibly, or maybe he just died. Exactly, possibly. Methuselah, but Methuselah died in the year of the flood. Could have drowned. But here's the point I want to get you to right here. This is what I want to get to. Assuming that I didn't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't double checked the chart. Okay, I haven't double checked. I just love it and show and share. From 1656 to Abraham, what is there, a period of 500 years, right? From out of the flood, out of the ark to Abraham. And what happens when we get out of the ark in Bible, Old Testament history? The three boys, right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And here's a little chart of that showing us. So we've got this scatter to go. And if you can see it here, because what we're talking about is Canaan, it's believed that they are mostly descendants of Ham. Amorites, Semirites, there's the Sidonians mentioned again. I'm in love with that new type of people now. Amorites, Hittites, Hivites, well, they're believed to be Ham descendants for the most part. So one more chart of thunder. Absolutely.
So Abraham came from over further east over I can't remember my genealogy. Is Abraham a descendant of Shem?
Yes.
And the pagans are descendants of Ham? People are going to be dealing with? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Shem.
Yeah.
Abraham is a descendant of Shem. Okay.
Semitic. Does that what does Semitic mean, Shem? And wasn't it around here that Abraham was from and had to go way up in here or was it here? Okay. Okay. I tend to think he was a Kuwaiti, but he was actually here and went up there and they went down to Egypt and came back here. A traveling man and not a Chevy to his name to help him to make the journey. Okay, so let's hold in mind that we got my 500 years. Have we got my 500 years from the flood to Abraham? So here's one more fun chart I have found. Who feels like there's the Jews in the Holy Land when Abraham finally ended up back there. And then the Jews in Egypt for 400 years, another 750 years. So we've got 500 plus 750. We've got 1,250 years, plus or minus, 1,250 from after the flood to when we're starting to take conquest. You think it was a little bit civilized by then with that much time? I've lived in Nashville. I've lived in Nashville 40 years almost. And the growth upward and outward blows me away. You're originally from Kennett, Missouri, is that right? Well, you've been here probably 60 years. You've seen growth out of this world, right? 49, and you've seen the growth we have today is just phenomenal from that time, isn't it? And what about from 1492? What about from 1492 to 1992 and now? 532 years. What about when this country, can you imagine the growth? And that's 532 years, right? And so now we're talking about 1,250 years. And I still have to say, did I get you? Have I got everybody going? I think Canaan was a pretty tough place. I think it's pretty civilized when they're getting in. It wasn't. And remember last week the Levant we learned about because it was passage. It was from Africa to Asia to Europe. I think it was a lot more strong, a lot more populated than we can even imagine. I think it's overwhelming. These people coming out of the desert these kids who grew up like my mother-in-law, seeing scarcity and whatnot. Here they've come scarcity out of the desert, and they're going to conquer this civilized society. I think it was overwhelming. I think it was overwhelming what they look like. You're right. You're right. But I think we tend to blow it off. Well, they're giants. And the bigger are they, harder. And we think, well, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. What are y'all afraid of? You got God behind you, right? Well, I just have to take it. I just have to take it for what they said. Certainly the Philistines. Yeah. Yeah. Big boned. All right. All right. Any last thoughts there, Gail? Gotcha. But I think it was enormous. I think it was enormous psychologically to come here and say we're going to take all this.
I wonder if they're really giants, like Washington's army at the time of the Revolution, he stood, he was a giant compared to the men in his command, because he was 6 foot something. And we're giants compared to our ancestors from 200 years ago.
Mhm. Well, one thing too, you may remember from last week, the Philistines are generally considered to be derivatives of the island of Sicily or somewhere. They're sea people brought in from somewhere else, whereas all the other kinds are kind of from Ham and coming up through Africa and maybe some from the north and from the west, from the east. The Philistines are considered to be island people from somewhere else. That's secular history, not biblical history. Okay, go for it. I won't have to ask. Go for it, Harvey.
I'll tell you why.
Bless your heart.
The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel so that he sold them into the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram Naharaim. That's why I love to read that passage. I love that name. Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram Naharaim, to whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. But then they cried out to the Lord, who raised up for them a deliverer, Othniel, son of Phinehas, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them.
If I could say that, I would.
And be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. And because of that, I want you to read the following verse also. Please take us.
Okay, oh, cool. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, so he became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him. So the land had peace for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Phinehas, died.
Very good. Where is Aram? Anybody got any idea? Once again, I'm doing the dual maps because anytime I ever look at these, I always find I like it 90%, and this one has a little, so I gotta put them on. This is my favorite map for teaching because we got these Canaanites identified, and we got these pesky Edomites and Moabites and Ammonites, and but when we talk about Aram, the kingdom of Aram, we're talking about pretty much what is today called Syria. And to me, this is confusing. Well, why did we call all these by their name they were back then? And I don't remember Syria being called Syria so much back then. Possibly. But there's good old Damascus. Not some, a little bit. Was it called Syria a little bit sometimes?
Not back then. It's more Abraham back then.
Yes. So we're talking about now. I said all that to say we're getting a little bit of flack now from a group that really is from the north. You know, this is really hitting us on our north front. And you know something that's interesting, just as a sidebar to all this, the Jews, even when they finally conquered this area, they never really had much colonial ambition. I mean, David got up there up north and messed with them some, but it was all taken back pretty much by Solomon or put under control. The Jews were pretty much go here, take it and go. Whereas there's been so many other kingdoms throughout world history that are just, especially the Europeans, much later. Okay, have y'all got that? That little chapter, that little section? Trouble in the north. That's the summary. Okay, who's next? Who will read now? We've got through the Aram thing. Okay, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and because I'm not doing this right, are we there? Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and because they did this evil, the Lord gave them Eglon. What a gorgeous name. Susie and Eglon. What a cute couple. King of Moab, power over Israel. Getting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join him, Eglon came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. How do you mean? I don't understand. Okay, well, I think here we're going back to my Canaanite map here. Here's what we got. Here's what we got right here. This is kind of a collusion of folks down here in the south region. We were in the north a bit ago, and now we're down here in the bottom. And our good friend Eglon has recruited these guys and these guys to go against some of our Simeon Benjamin type folks, I would guess. Simeon or Judea, Simeon folks. Did you have a point? Yeah. I think there has to be, and again, I personally think it's several authors of the book because in that chapter we were talking about based upon the subject matter was the indigenous people, or no, the first bunch we were talking about the tribes people, and then now we're talking about the indigenous people and the indigenous people. Again, as it goes, first person, third person, and whatnot, I tend to think it's being written by different people, and these things overlap some amount, as you would say. But I'm getting look, I got three opponents here. Come on.
You know, to the point that they had that parallel events going on. You got to remember, in the days of the judges, and all that stuff is going on right now, and sometime in this time period. So yeah, there's overlap happening.
Yeah. Charles and then Scott.
One person, and that's the God of heaven, who was judged from the very beginning. We're judged. We're into the other thing too. God of heaven, Jesus Christ, today. If nothing, if it's ever been done, or ever been said, or ever be done, unless it's under God the Father and the Son. And that's something we need to do, regardless of how the just the right, Jesus' age was just the right time for this, right time for
Yeah.
that. And it's from the very beginning, it will be until this world is destroyed by God. There will be one judge and one jury, and God will use Jesus to authority to judge the people, and the people will follow, and will be separated from those who do it, and will be divided into the two groups, those that are going to become for persecution and fire, like the fire, and those that have been thankful that a few times will be God will give us part of His kingdom, will become part of His kingdom, His spirit, forever, everlasting, everlasting. Everything's from everlasting, everlasting.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's one thing we got to remember. I'm kind of paraphrasing what I remember about what God is. He started out as God. He's the only God, and we accept Him, and we really got to accept Him today as God to follow Him, the Holy Spirit.
Amen, brother. Amen. Way to take that and put it to today. Very good. Anything real quick?
Just real quick, a little bit about what Herschel mentioned, and we'll get into this a little bit in more detail, but it does seem to be lots of time, because when the judges are rising up, they don't usually bring the entire country of Israel with them. They usually bring just a few tribes with them. And so I think one of the things that's changing as you get to the end of the book, and certainly as you get into the times of Saul and David, is right now there's not any what I would consider national identity as much.
Very good. Very good. By the way, has the roll gone all the way around? Okay. Very good. Let me. Yes. I have not. I'm not that good. I'm not that good a person. No. No.
I just wondered if you added them all up, would that be a much longer period of time?
Very likely.
Could suggest.
That's your assignment.
Yeah. And that goes back to a point I told the first week. There is discrepancy, intellectual discrepancy today, scholarly, about how long did judges take. We generally say 400 years, but some people can say, well, it might have been as little as 360, and some could be as long as 530, depending upon where the baseline is and whatnot. So let's roll on. Let's roll on. You may. Um, very good. Very good. Very good. Okay. So now we've got this new thing going on here. We got this new thing going on in 15 seconds or less. Go for it. What do you want to share?
Well, I want to read this.
Oh, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Go. On me, baby. Go for it.
Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and He gave them a deliverer. Forgive me for butchering this one. Ehud, a left-handed man.
Yes.
Any raise your hand if you're left-handed.
James is excited.
Ehud.
We're the only people that are right now.
The son of Gera, the Benjamite, the Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud had made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing.
Very good. And we all know a cubit is from here to here. Right? So that could vary, but usually 18 inches is what we North American folks like to say. Okay. And now what about we got Elah? What is it? Ehud, and what was the other? What's the? Yeah, Eglon, Ehud. Must have been a big vowel. They were into vowels back then. Okay. Go ahead.
He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you. The king said to his attendants, Leave us. And they all left.
Are you willing to roll a little more?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ehud then approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room of the palace and said, I have a message from God for you. As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand
drew the sword from his right thigh and plunged it into the king's belly. Oh yeah. Even the handle sinking in after the blade, and his bow was discharged. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fact closed in over it. Sorry, fellas. Then Ehud went out to the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked the door. Now, this really sort of flies in the mind of the usual Bible hero that I like. Yeah. I like the guys that play the trumpets and crash the vases and pick up 5 stones and a sling. I like all those guys. This is sneaking a knife. Well, and also, what is this to me? What's this kingdom about that we let this Jew walk in here, and bring a present,
So the fact that he was a left-handed man is important.
Yes.
You ever felt why? Because typically you'd carry a sword with your right, and would fight with your right hand and a sword with your left. But if you're coming in without your sword, it's showing that your defenses are down. And so
Right.
he was kind of presenting himself as, hey, you can trust me, right in your stomach.
Very good. Very good. All right. Let's see.
I think he had the Jabba the Hutt had something in common.
Anybody else read? We've got 2 slides to go. Go for it. Will you feed it?
After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked. They said, "He must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace." They waited to the point of embarrassment, but when he did not open the doors of the room, they took a key and unlocked them. There they saw their lord falling to the floor dead. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Seirah. When he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading them.
And last but not least,
"Follow me," he ordered, "for the Lord has given Moab, your enemy, into your hands." So they followed him down and took possession of the fords of the Jordan that led to Moab. They allowed no one to cross over. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong. Not one escaped. That day, Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land had peace for 80 years.
very good. And then, after Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Man, that's so easy. I'll just let anybody else answer that. What is an ox goad? It's a stick, more or less, isn't it? Yeah, could be. Well, again, I'll tell you, I just think even though he got the job done, he's a little bit of an anti-role model, and we're going to see that. We're going to see that more and more. Oh man, you've got a nice ox goad. It's actually a pretty nice. We'll find that and we'll look at that. I think that comes up again possibly. But what we're going to find is, and I think this is encouragement to us, and we'll talk about more, but anti-role models. That's one of my favorite terms. People that we show up as folks we don't want to be like. And God is using anti-role models here to get the bigger job done. So sometimes I think the lesson is, when we feel like we're not equipped or whatever, we may be in fact what God would like to have to deliver, get things done. Last thoughts and comments. 10, 12, 11, 12. Excellent.
Got a whole big story about everybody else. Oh yeah, he killed 600 people.
Yeah.
And also delivered Israel.
Right.
Don't know where it was. Don't know.
He didn't shank a guy in the belly, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And it's like, puzzling. All right. Any last thoughts? Anybody else? If not, everybody have a great week.